In theaters from Magnolia Pictures is director I was going to say Josh Brolin. Josh Margolin. It sounds the same. Josh Margolin's first theatrical feature film, Thelma. It's not about half of a team of women who run off to get away from society and then have a very memorable ending in the film. It's not what that is. This is a different Thelma. It's not Thelma Ritter either. This is not the Thelma Ritter story. This is a movie called Thelma, and it stars June Squibb, and it is about an elderly woman living alone who gets scammed by phone scammers, which is a very real thing that has happened to people I know of similar or different vintages, and she decides to take the law into her own hands and go after the scammers and get her money back. This movie is a delight. This is a film, I would almost say, for all ages. I mean, certainly it's a film about old people, if you want to call it that, but it's a film that any of us, I think, can recognize the humor and humanity in. It is a comedy, but also I realized partway through, this is an action movie. This is a Jerry action movie. It's actually a phrase I've had in my head since college. This is a Jerry action movie. This is the titular Thelma, played by June Squibb, who is tearing out on her own with the aid of her young, very, very likable grandson, played by Fred Hechinger, who is saddled with very overburdening, overprotective, very neurotic parents, played by Parker Posey and Clark Gregg. And he is a guy who is super sweet and super nice and loves his grandmother and is looking out for her and is super helpful with her. And it's a really wonderful relationship to see where the grandparent isn't dismissed and isn't mocked or anything by the younger generation. And the kid is just a really nice guy who just is having trouble finding his way. And he's sort of crippled with anxiety or with whatever because he has these they're not even helicopter parents, they're like Black Hawk helicopter parents, and it's just to see this dynamic between the grandmother and the grandson is pretty wonderful. And the parents are funny because they're just ridiculous, and he's helping his grandmother in some very vague way. She won't tell him that she's going after, I'm not going to tell you the whole story, she doesn't tell him that she's going after the bad guys because he'll worry. I'm only going to tell you part of this. He helps her get to a retirement home to meet up with an old friend of hers, played by Richard Roundtree, yes, Shaft, and they form a bond, and they go out to try to take down the bad guys. And as I said, partway through the movie, I realized this is an action movie. They keep dropping all these little hints about like Mission Impossible and Tom Cruise and things like that, and then you realize as the movie is going, she is doing the elderly woman version of what you would be doing in a revenge movie or an action movie. And the end credits, again, not giving anything away, the end credits amp that up a little bit, and it's just really funny. It's a really fun ride. It doesn't overlook the pitfalls of aging and the sadness of aging. It's very realistic in many ways. It's a comedy, so some of it's pretty silly and kind of played up. But I mean that in a good way. But it does acknowledge getting older and losing your friends, and the friends who are left might not be physically and mentally what they once were, and acknowledging that time is passing and the time ahead of you is far, far less than the time behind you. And boy, is this a good movie. It was really funny. It doesn't, as I said, it doesn't really make fun of the Thelma character. It treats her in a very light way. But I think anybody of that age would laugh along with her and not be offended that they're making light of her not understanding how to use a computer. I got to tell you, as the years go by, I mean, I know how to use all this stuff. I'm shooting this on my phone. It's an intelligent phone too. As the years go by and more technology comes along, you do kind of hit a point sometimes where you're like, you know, I've kind of had enough. Like, I don't need whatever the next thing is. It was email, then it was Facebook, then it was Instagram, then it was texting, then it was TikTok, and then it was some other thing. And every 10 minutes it's something else. And it's just like, you get to a point after a while where you're like, you all have fun with that. You know, what I have actually kind of works for me. And so we see that in Thelma's way of living. And I don't necessarily disagree with a lot of what she has to say about things. So it's a really fun movie. It's really funny. This is a movie, I mean, kids see it with your parents or grandparents. Grandparents see it with your kids or grandkids. This is a film that should bring the generations together, because I think wherever you are on that ladder, pardon me, I gasped. Wherever you are on that ladder of grandparent, parent, grandchild, this will be relatable to you. So this is sort of an indie release. I don't know how wide this release is. See it in the theater with people. We saw it in the theater with on a Tuesday night, a well-attended Tuesday night, and it was every demographic and every age range. I was really surprised. I was sure it was going to be us and a bunch of senior citizens. It wasn't. Everybody was laughing out loud. People were like exclaiming things out loud. They were totally along for the ride in this. Hop on your scooter and see Thelma if you can, because boy, is this a good time. In theaters now.